Hey there guys and gals, Anime Dude here. And back when I made my Why You Should Watch video on Major, I said I wasn't sure if this was going to become a series or not. Well, screw that, because even if I don't make these often enough to call them a series, there's a couple videos that I've been meaning to make for a long while now, and this is one of them. I make these videos not to bask in the glory of the great shows that everyone already seems to know about, but to show some appreciation for some of the series that have flown a bit under the radar, while simultaneously leaving a major impact on me personally. One such underrated series that I've been dying to talk to you guys about for well over a year now is Alderamin on the Sky. While I'm primarily going to be talking about why you should watch the Madhouse anime that aired in the summer of 2016, I'm still going to be using the word series rather than show because this anime was good enough for me to try reading the novels, or at least what's been translated of them, and dare I say they were bloody brilliant as well. Since the anime adaptation only has 13 episodes, this video won't really contain anything that I'd personally consider to be a spoiler, so no need to worry too much over that. Now, without any further ado, here's why you should watch/read Alderamin on the Sky. So, in order to see if this series sounds interesting to you, I plan to very briefly go over a summary of both the plot and setting. I've seldom ever read a synopsis on my anime list, and immediately decided to check out the show as a result. The reason being that outlines like those rarely do even the best of shows any justice. But, nevertheless, I feel like it's important, so please bear with me for a bit while I give my own little summary of the series, and then we can move on to the fun stuff. The story of Alderamin takes place in a world very different from our own, and has a magic system that, while fairly simple, isn't too well explained in the anime. It's just kind of something that you pick up with time, so I wouldn't worry about it too much. The important thing is that their magic system is greatly intertwined with their religious beliefs, as well as the adorable little spirits found in their world. At this point in their world's history, or at least the history of the country that we are focused on, those religious beliefs have helped to stagnate the advancement of science and technology, as those who do study science are shown to be regarded as blasphemers. But even that isn't something I feel too inclined to go into right now. So, now that we've gone over the basics of the setting, let's take a little bit of a look at the plot. If you decide to read the synopsis found on my anime list, you'll probably see a bunch of countries and character names that you don't yet know. But the gist is that the main characters start out the series by attempting to take a military exam and join their country's army as military officers. Now that is where I'm actually going to start trying to sell you on this series, because there lies two of the primary reasons I became so invested myself. First of all, and this is probably the one that shows the most bias, I'm a big sucker for military settings and the strategic problem solving that is found within them. Some of you may not know this, but Code Geass is one of my top favorite anime of all time. And while a large reason for that may be due to nostalgia, another huge cause was the military exploits and strategies involved. Getting to see Lelouch constantly fight for control of the battlefield as if he was playing a game of chess was genuinely a huge part of why the series initially appealed to me to such a great extent. Likewise, the main character of Alderamin is a guy that excels at strategy and tactics in very much the same way. Speaking of characters, I'm sure anybody that's been around my channel for very long already knows that I'm huge on characters and what they bring to a story. That being said, the characters in Alderamin on the Sky are another one of the main reasons I love this series so much. While I can't say that all 5 of the main characters get a ton of screen time or development during the anime's 13 episode run, the multi-dimensional personality of the series' main protagonist is on par with just about any other character out there. In fact, Solork is right there beside Goro Shigano as one of my top favorite fictional characters of all time, and the fact that he achieves such a status in a mere 13 episodes is not something to be taken lightly. He is to laziness as Hikigaya Hachiman is to loneliness, and for those of you that don't get that reference, it basically means that he embodies what would normally be seen by society as a negative trait, yet manages to twist it into something positive through his own personal philosophy and perspective on life. It's refreshing to say the least, and I can't really think of too many other characters that do it quite so well. His goal to live a cushy life of laziness may contradict the direction that the story ends up going, but how that comes to be is simply brilliant writing on the author's part, and I can almost guarantee that you'll at least want to watch the first couple of episodes to see that play out. Speaking of the first episode, I'm sure it'll show you that Ikeda can be a bit pervy and flirty, but he knows when to get serious. And I personally love how the show manages to minimize any fan service despite Ikta's womanizing and playboyish behavior. Anyways, before I talk about Ikta for this entire video, and yes, I could dedicate an entire video to his character as I've considered doing so countless times, let's move on. I always say that no one show or series will ever appeal to everyone, and that stance holds true for Alderamin as well. For all I know, some of the things I love about it may actually be what holds it back from achieving mainstream success. For example, I mentioned I love that this show doesn't rely on any sort of fan service. The main heroine's name is Yatori, and I love that she isn't just some eye candy, but rather she's a strong and intelligent woman that's intended to be taken seriously. Personality-wise, the first character comparison to come to mind would be Mikasa from Attack on Titan, though there are some major differences between the two, so I guess I could just be saying that based partially on the fact that they're both beautiful military badasses. Regardless, they both seem to have the back of their respective protagonists through both thick and thin, even if it's shown in different ways. Actually, even though Ikta and Yatori are both great characters in their own right, a major benefit to their appeal is the great chemistry achieved when their characters coexist with one another. They are shown supporting each other through life's heavier and more difficult moments, and these interactions are shown to fuel their development as their characters are fleshed out. They've both joined the military, and their country is involved in a war, and while that alone should be enough to pique interest, I want to talk a bit about why that's such a big deal. In war, loss of some kind is pretty much inevitable, and while I don't want to spoil any major deaths or the possible lack thereof, I do want to say that this show doesn't approach the concept of war quite as lightly as I've seen many other shows do. Whether it's the death of a comrade or an enemy, it's still the loss of a life, and that loss carries a weight for those responsible. Even if a soldier manages to avoid death during a war, the aftermath could very well include physical, emotional, and psychological repercussions that can never be undone. Also, chain of command is a very important thing to consider. While I would compare Ikta Salork to Lelouch Lamperouche in some ways, there are plenty of differences, some of which can be traced back to their respective chains of command. As someone who's recently graduated college and gotten a taste of the real world, I've already noticed that the most capable people aren't always those in positions of power, and no matter how much you may disagree with a superior that you see as incompetent, immediate retaliation against them isn't always an option. I can only imagine that it's even less realistic to do so in the military, where discipline is a constant priority. But anyways, going back to the differences between Lelouch and Ikta, Lelouch was able to start his own army and constantly command them as he saw fit, but Ikta is a soldier that is just now joining an already established military force in the beginning of the series. While the show is quick to let us know that he will eventually become a great general, similar to how My Hero Academia is quick to let us know that Deku will eventually become the #1 hero, he's sure to deal with the limitations that come with starting near the bottom. Heck, even when he does someday assume a position of command where he's likely able to control the flow of the battlefield, that'll likely only serve to make the weight of any losses he experiences that much greater. Accepting responsibility for the repercussions of one's actions and or decisions is a hurdle that any great leader must go through, Lelouch and Ikta included. Anyways, I love how Alderamin's military setting, characters, various political and religious aspects, etc. They all managed to work together to build such an interesting world, and they managed to do so in only 13 episodes. But it's difficult to discuss any more than I already have about what makes this series so great without spoiling anything. Likewise, I guess I should dedicate a bit of time to discuss a couple of the things that hold this series back. The first of which I'm sure some of you caught on to way back when I mentioned that it was made by Studio Madhouse. Don't get me wrong, I love Studio Madhouse, and I think they adapted it really well. It's just, they have a bad track record when it comes to making second seasons. The odds of Alderamin getting a second season are especially bad considering how terrible sales have been. While I wouldn't hesitate to buy the novels in English, they're not officially available in English, and I was only able to read the first few of them due to fan translations. However, after some spoilers from later in the novels were leaked, a lot of the translators abandoned the fan project, and now there's no way to know when or if the later volumes will be available in English either. In fact, when I took an elementary Japanese class my senior year of college, my primary goal was to learn to read and translate Japanese just enough to where I could buy these specific novels in Japanese and be confident enough to slowly translate them myself. I haven't been able to get close to that level of competency just yet, but that's how far I was going just to try to see what happens next. On one hand, that speaks volumes about how much I enjoyed the series, and on the other, it shows that as of right now, you won't be able to experience the entire story no matter how much you do enjoy it. Honestly, it may not help at all, but if Alderamin sounds at all interesting to you, then go check it out on some official source like Funimation. Perhaps a resurgence in popularity will help us to one day get a second season, or at least an English translation of the light novels. And yes, I've seen the spoilers that cause the people translating to lose interest, and while I don't recommend for you to spoil yourself like I accidentally did, I will say that I would still very much like to know and experience the entire story up to and after the point that was spoiled for me. Anyways, before I end this video, I want to say sorry I haven't been getting out very many videos lately. I somehow got my parents to react to Attack on Titan whenever possible. While that's been a pretty fun side series to make so far, I haven't concentrated as much on my other content due to both a lack of time and a major case of writer's block that's left me with quite a few unfinished scripts. I mean, heck, I started the script for this video like a year ago. That writer's block is one more reason why I've been especially determined to get this video out, even if I'm not 100% satisfied with the script. Cause at the end of the day, even if my wording isn't great and my stance on why you should watch Alderamin could have been better, I hope that the love and passion I have for underrated shows like this and Major help to make up for it and convince you to go give them a try anyways. Speaking of which, if you haven't seen it already, feel free to go check out my video on why you should watch Major. It's another one of the series that's impacted me personally in a major way. I know, I'm not funny. And so on that note, I want to thank you all for watching, remind you to praise the sundress, and Anime Dude out.